Hello and welcome to the LRM podcast, sponsored by Adrian Flux Insurance. I'm Martin Domoney.
And I'm Steve Miller.
And today we're at Richard Chassis.
What a lovely place to be.
So if you've been listening to the podcast in any capacity over the last nearly a year, can you believe we've been doing this nearly a year?
We need to do a special episode for 52 one.
Our annual special.
Annual special. Yeah.
Anyway, you'll know that Steve is currently building up his 1984-90, slowly admittedly, but he is building it up. And part of that is getting a new bulkhead.
So we're here to collect it, which is really exciting. I've had a little glimpse of it. It's outside, ready in a stooge.
It does look fantastic. But no, the Richards team have been very gracious in giving us a tour of the facility.
Far too long.
But no, thanks ever so much for having us.
Yeah.
So we're after you, go on.
After me, right.
You can do the intro.
So we're sitting here with Alistair and Duncan of Richards Chassis, and giving us a bit of a tour around. And since the last time I came here, which was, we worked out probably over 10 years ago now. That's how fast time flies. Because the last time I was here, you did a stage 1 V8 chassis for me for the project. And to say this place has expanded is an understatement. It's like twice the size.
Yeah,
More
we've
than
put a warehouse on the end for storing chassis in, completed chassis, and we've put some workshops on there and a specialist sort of build bay for doing sort of new stuff, restoration work and stuff like that, and new projects. So probably come to those in a bit. But
when you came, did we have both these units, or was it just the one?
So the offices have changed. We were upstairs, and then now we're downstairs, and then obviously
Initially we started with this one.
Yeah.
Then we bought the one next door, which effectively doubled.
which was when I think you came, so I think we were in that. They were fitting chassis in that unit.
So where the
next
jigs
door.
are now, that's where the chassis was made.
Yeah.
But there was a laser cutter which has since moved, isn't it?
Yeah.
That was in the corner of the same room.
Moved, it's totally changed.
I mean, it's completely
about three times the size of the original one.
It's crazy. But that just obviously shows how much Land Rover is in need of, well, most people's old Land Rovers are in need of new chassis, aren't they? So
I was going to say too, we were talking about the premises here. If you look at the April issue of Land Rover Monthly, Greg King did one of his A Day With series on Richard Chassis. So get the mag out and have a look through that, and you can sort of put together bits of the place that we're talking about. It's an incredible place. Like I've never been before. This is my first time here, but to see how things go from tiny laser cut brackets and bits of metal to a full-blown galvanised chassis ready to go under a Land Rover is amazing.
because you were saying earlier, Alison, there's like 380 different variants.
Yeah,
of chassis,
we build roughly 380 different types. It's mainly the Series 1s that are the problems. We start with the Series 1. I think there's nearly 30 different versions of an 80 chassis before you even get to 86 and 88 Series 1s, and then all the Series 1s there's left-hand drive variants, right-hand drive variants, military variants, stage 1s, trucks, station wagons, Series 2, Series 3s, and then you get to Defender, and it all starts getting a bit simpler at Defender. But whereas Land Rover only build one chassis at a time, we build well over 300 different variants at any one time, so we just have thousands of parts kicking around for thousands of different chassis.
Discovery 2s. You wouldn't think there are 8 variants of Discovery 2, but there are.
No, you wouldn't think that. No.
Yeah, and there's not a single common part between Discovery 2 and Defender.
Yeah.
So when you think, they're roughly the same thing with a different body on.
See, for me, when we did the tour earlier, just looking around all the shelves of all the, like a deconstructed chassis, and you were testing us on
Flat pack.
What's this, what's that, right? I have got no idea what that is. As soon as you said it, you recognise it, but when you see it in its individual component form, so
it's quite fun to sort of try and you were testing us on what they were, and it was like, it looked so familiar, but I couldn't figure out where it was from.
Can I just say they failed dismally?
You chucked us right under the bus.
So basically, we wouldn't be an apprentice here.
Nah. Plus, I can't really weld very well, so it'd be a lost cause.
Not too bad, are you?
You're better at welding than I am.
Yeah, but
we used to have a chef that worked here, and he actually turned into a really, really good welder when we finished training him. But
it's often the way we like to get people is people who actually want to work and learn something are often better than people who think they know everything.
Okay.
So you can teach them what they need to know, and
As long as the important welds are done by the guys who are coded and got all the qualifications, that's fine. But
Of course, yeah, you've got to
you
start
see-
somewhere, haven't you?
Yeah,
You-
there's
you
a lot
can't-
of
think,
guys-
you can teach the basics of welding relatively quickly. It just,
Yeah.
but it's how they apply it, and some of the better people, and not necessarily start out as welders.
there's a lot of guys here that just tack stuff up.
Everyone's got to start somewhere.
Yeah, yeah.
And then we train them as we go.
Oh, brilliant. So do you see a lot of that? Is there a lot of development where you say you had a chef come work with you and he now,
Yeah,
turned into a great welder? Is it about promoting people within the business and getting their skills up?
Definitely can.
Try to, yeah. I mean, it's a very small skill set. You know what I mean? You can get somebody come in and weld something together, but it's not necessarily just about the welding. It's about a lot of it is about knowing the product and which bracket goes where and what it should look like when it's done. So a lot of it is trying to train the guy to be familiar with the product, as opposed to being able to weld a weld.
As in, that weld should only come up to that point there and no further. Because a washer
Yeah,
on that,
Of
that
course,
bolt
yeah,
might
'cause
interfere with it.
You don't
So it
want
only
to
goes to
grind
there.
that down.
Don't
Yeah.
keep going.
yeah. If we're doing a replica Series 1 chassis, all the downward welds are 1/3 weld, 1/3 miss, 1/3 weld.
Okay.
Okay,
It's all good.
that's the thing. They're all like that, and we can tell if something's been replaced on a chassis because everybody just welds all the way down them.
Right. Yeah.
So-
It's attention to detail, isn't it?
So
They've got
it's
many...
yeah, and when you're doing a chassis that's £3,000-4,000 for a Series 1 guy, and it's a replica of something
They want
that's
that
going on in an
perfect, don't
expensive
they?
vehicle, they want it right. They want everything bang on it.
And
But if you can replicate that for him and give him the best product you can that way, then
all-
everyone's happy, aren't they?
all the Series 1s are made to the chassis number, not the year.
It's not a generic one-size-fits-all
Yeah, of
Series
course.
1 chassis.
Yeah.
Oh,
Like I said earlier, I think there's 30 some odd 80 chassis alone, so
Because they were changing by the month often. Back then. They were working out how the hell they were going to make everything. And they changed regular and often.
So, sorry, I was just going to
yeah, so
touch on this. It's like this is a fairly, not new, but something you're going to try and sort of develop, I guess, is the
restoration and restoration
chassis
side,
rather
yeah.
than, as well as obviously supplying chassis all over the world for Defender and Discovery rebuilds.
For a long time, we've only made new chassis. But because of that, we do have a lot of knowledge of what should be when and where or from when and where. So why not help people who want things restoring as well? So that's
there's all that knowledge now. All the old boys have that knowledge, and all the old boys, unfortunately, are leaving us. They're all reaching an age where, unless they pass that knowledge on to other people, it will be lost. How does the wiring work on an 80? You could research it and learn it, but then the old boys all know how that works, don't they? They just know. They just look at it and go, "Well, you've done that wrong," and you go, "Okay, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
You've usually done it wrong."
really important to keep those skills, isn't it? Otherwise, we're all going to be a bit lost, aren't we?
That's why my lad, he's 26 now, but he actually went away and learnt and worked with the old boys. And realistically, that's
Should
how
people like being called that one.
And I'm sure he'll love it. Pete Stringer, bless him, is a fantastic guy. But we kind of learnt that from Steve Walker in the early days. He was an old boy who had all the knowledge in his head, nothing written on
He
paper.
wasn't that old when we met him.
He wasn't
but
that old,
we were a
but,
lot
I mean,
younger.
that's 40 years ago.
So you came here as kind of like what, apprentices originally, or
We didn't come here. We went into a shed behind somebody's house in Woodlands in Doncaster.
okay?
Right.
Talk us through the very beginnings of Richard
So,
Chassis.
Richard Chassis ultimately started with a guy called Steve Walker, who was a bit of an eccentric dude. Still kicking around now. He lives in the club, has his pint.
Very
and,
dry sense of humour.
Very dry sense of humour. Plays a fiddle
And a banjo.
And a banjo.
Yeah.
Would sing some very dodgy Irish music and things like that. Lovely bloke. And he had this idea just to build some chassis. He started wanting to build a 109 Series 3 station wagon for his vehicle.
Okay.
And somebody said, "Oh, can I buy that?" So he sold it and started making another one. And we were there with him during this time, making bits and stuff like that
This
after
is
school.
When we were about 16.
16, so this is in 1984ish. John Marsland had just set up Marsland's as well,
Okay.
because he got the series jigs from Land Rover to do their warranty work on their stuff, because they were all moving over to Defender.
Right.
But
Okay.
he had,
So
Land Rover are obliged to keep warranty parts for 10 years.
10 years or
Really?
whatever. So John Marsland took over the sort of series stuff. Steve Walker set up as a kind of rival to him, so they were always there.
I'm not sure which one happened first.
Yeah, they're sort of
Because
thereabouts.
Steve initially
same time.
wanted a chassis. It was Land Rover wanted thousands back then for one. And he said, I'll make my own then. So, that's how it all started.
So that's kind of where it started, and then
He started employing local people out of work.
ex-miners and things
back
like
in
that.
On the back of the miners' strike.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
He was starting to give people work locally from that. And then it just snowballed.
So it went massive. I mean, they ended up in a dirty, great big unit. I mean, twice the size of this unit here, out in Thorn, and it got people. But instead of laser cutting and stuff like that, they were doing all the holes were punched or drilled, and things were formed by cutting them on shear machines and then radiusing tops out.
So really labour intensive.
I was-
Massively
man-hours.
labour
But I was
intensive.
plasma cutting.
Yeah, with plasma
I
cutting
was
by
plasma
hand
cutting
round
rails.
templates
Wow.
to get
Following
rail
temp-
shapes out and stuff
And
like
then
that.
you get 4 rails together,
Weld them up,
tack them on
Yeah,
the
yeah.
ends.
grind
brick
the
reverse,
edges
tack 'em on
so
the-
they were all the same shape.
Yeah. We had a vice on a tripod. So you put the rail in and then just get them all more or less the right shape. Then it'd come out of that, put a stamping jig on, stamp where all the holes
Holes
would
were.
be.
Drill
Then it
them.
goes onto the drill, which we still got over the road.
That's mad, isn't it?
So labour intensive.
So hole saws and drill bits.
So in terms of like man hours to build a typical chassis then versus now, what
Oh,
sort of,
Well,
it's phenomenal.
I mean, yeah, I mean, you're probably talking. I mean, roughly at the minute, we're probably about 8 or 9 man hours per chassis
Bear in mind,
at the minute. But a lot of the stuff's covered off with automated welding systems
yes,
in,
yeah.
cabinet welders, laser cutting instead of hand forming.
virtually everything was made with a guillotine.
Fly press. You've seen the fly
Yeah,
press. We've still got it.
We get a
Yeah.
sheet of steel, and we'd have a template, scribe out the part we wanted, and guillotine
Shear
it
it.
off, shear it.
It was literally
And you couldn't
that
get
labour
to-
intensive.
That's really hard
Hit
work.
it with
Yeah.
a. They didn't even
There
really.
was like 40 guys making 12 chassis a week or something like that.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was proper labour intensive, and all the profit went into paying the lads because
These
Steve
lads here
was
don't
a-
know the ball. They don't know the ball.
Yeah.
Sure, that
Back
would be
in
really
our
pleased to hear
day.
that.
Steve was really good at sharing out the profit amongst the lads and us having a pay scale to match up with them. But it left him a bit short when it came to things like, we need to buy 3 new welders.
Yeah, so running an
Oh,
actual
hang on,
business.
where's our bonus?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Lads don't like
So-
giving up the bonus to buy new welding machines. so it
Because
kind
of things
falls
like
apart.
that, he got built up, and then
Kind of
he
imploded.
kind of gave up on it.
Yeah.
And it went downhill from there, and I think he just sort of semi-retired. We went off and did other things.
You went off welding, didn't
Yeah,
you?
I went
Funnily
off.
enough.
I wasn't a welder then. I was helping out doing frame changes,
Okay.
and then I went off and
Became a welder.
became a
Went
welder.
to college
did
and got all his
course.
qualities and what have you.
became a welder, and then had the same. I worked at the same place for I don't know, 12 years or more,
Yeah.
and it was a machine shop with 2 welders, and I was one of them.
Okay.
And we used to do a lot of things for the railways. So I'd be working on a 1948 drawing for something that dropped sand in front of a train, and they're still using the same copper pipes and
Right, yeah.
fascinating. Or little bosses with a little thing with a boss either side. Make 200 of those, so you'd rattle those off. So did a lot of things like that. But some of the drawings were from decades before I was even born.
Right.
Like
okay.
works about proper anorak could have them on his
And
wallpaper.
you wouldn't think in the 90s that would they'd still be using them, but yeah, same British Rail.
Wow. That's
So,
cool.
so I went
Yeah.
off and learned how to build boats, and then
Ah, okay.
and then obviously I went
wooden
to
boats or fiberglass.
Fiberglass.
Fiberglass,
I
yeah.
can't work with wood. You can't weld it.
No.
It's a bit of a
No.
problem.
You cut a bit out, you can't put it back.
No,
It's a bit of an issue. I'm not that accurate, I'm
Well,
afraid.
that's interesting. So were you Land Rover enthusiasts back then?
Not really.
I mean,
now.
you're Land Rover enthusiasts now.
I do like a Land Rover, but I've never been. Well, we've owned a few over the years, obviously, but
Yeah, quite a few, but
quite a few.
that's
but
over a lot of years.
sort of discoveries are more my sort of bag. But even then, now there's just
I've had a few 1.7s here and there. And
Yeah.
But, we are having a Land Rover built as we speak, but it's a bit special, a bit special.
You have to
It's,
wait and see
For work or play?
It's meant to be a show Land Rover.
okay.
So it's going to be. So Ricky's building it down at RAC Components.
Oh, we know
and,
Rick, yeah.
Yeah, and he builds a nice truck.
Yeah, he does it. That blue one that he brings to the shows that he puts up on.
And he also works at DDS as well. So he's quality control guy down at DDS.
I only found that out the other day because I think I saw something on YouTube and he was showing somebody round. I was like, what's Rick from RAC Parts doing at DDS?
We're just sending pictures of stuff that's not quite right, and he just sends about, oh, for God's sake.
But he doesn't say it.
No, he doesn't say that at all.
There's
There's a few expletives going there as well.
A podcast. And people,
He says, "Oh heavens!"
Yeah.
I better sort that
Oh
out.
dearie do me, that appears to have
golly
got
gosh.
somewhat wrong.
and in a way, we're part of his quality control as well, because we're using their products.
yeah, of course.
And
Yeah.
feedback is always good. No matter who you think, how clever you think you are, feedback is always good.
So they'll bring in like their cross members to go onto your jigs.
Well,
'Cause
some
you make
of them are our cross members that they build for us.
Yeah.
And then they sell stuff out as well that's ours. But we've worked together with DDS for many, many years now.
Fair few bits of their tooling.
And between us, we own a load of the old SPI tooling.
Oh yeah, that's quite.
So-
Can you tell us that story? That was,
Well, the
that was
SPI
quite-
were a Canadian company that used to make fuel tanks and all sorts of Land Rover parts.
Spectra Premium International.
Yeah, Spectra Premium. There's a
So
name.
That's a fancy
When you
name.
said that name earlier, I was like, I remember that name. And then
Oh,
I
yeah.
remembered the Canadian. When you said Canadian, I thought, that's a fuel tank. Because they used to make really
they used to
good
do
fuel
fuel
tanks.
tanks. A
Yeah.
lot of it,
Sounds like
so-
bad guys from Thunderbirds.
Yeah, yeah.
So just one day they decided they'd had enough and packed up,
Pulled out of Europe.
pulled out,
Right,
and,
yeah,
just,
that was
and
it.
just sold everything off. So we had this big scramble around
We had no money.
to try and rate.
To buy any.
We just took every single penny we
Yeah,
had.
but what would be
borrowed.
considered no money now?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
we
Back then, it's
we
like,
had that much.
Yeah.
I think we spent £30,000 on tooling and just spring seat tooling and stuff like that, rear cross member tooling, and then a few. I mean, we literally down to the wire. We weren't running an overdraft at the time. We were
borrowed
being
everything.
really good.
Yeah.
We borrowed every single penny we could get, because without all that tooling from SPI, because one day they rang us up. They said, "Oh, we're closing. Do you want to buy this stuff? Because if not, we're going to sell it to somebody else." And we're going to scrap it. If it don't get sold, we're going to scrap it. Right? Okay, so you're not just going to give us the tool. No, you're going to have to buy it, or we're going to scrap it.
That's a bit.
It's like ransom, isn't
Okay,
it?
well, it kind of is, but I mean,
business,
we
yeah,
spent
it's
every single penny we had, and then we've got all this tooling that weighs tons and tons, and it's
No
like
machines to run
no
it.
machines to run it on. No
Was the
big.
tooling all in Canada as well?
No, the tooling was all in Coventry.
Oh,
Because they were, they were supplying obviously to Europe.
But
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But the point was, if that stuff wasn't made, we were out on our ear. We
did. We
So
didn't.
we got
so
no
this
business.
wouldn't be here now.
We
This-
did. We wouldn't have a business
Yeah.
if we didn't have that access to that tooling. So
Right.
there'd be no spring seats, because that was the only press spring seat tool in the country at the time,
Okay.
and I think it might still be now.
No,
I mean, I think GK
somebody else has got them.
somebody else might have one somewhere, but so we got that, and we got some rear cross member tooling and a few other bits. On about 3 days after we'd nearly bankrupted ourselves, and we're wondering what we're going to do with all this
How are we
tooling
gonna
and
make things
how
with
we're
this
going to
that we
make
can't
stuff
do
off
anything
it. We had one 100-ton press that went about 1 minute, 1 inch a minute. And it was,
Right. Yeah. Eventually, it will get.
yeah, eventually it pressed
got it.
something.
Still
So
works,
still got
yeah.
it. Still. And got this phone call off Des, and he says, you've just bought all that tooling. I said, yeah. Can we have it so we can run it?
Can we come
Yeah.
to
Can we-
Yes, just help yourself.
come to some agreement with this? And,
Yeah.
and we've worked together ever since, because
Yeah.
they desperately needed what we got in and bought.
And
Right.
And we
they'd
needed
got
something
other
to make
stuff.
it.
They'd
Yeah.
bought stuff as well that we wanted to buy off them, and it was like, well, this is simple,
Perfect
isn't it?
collaboration, really.
This is simple. They were a small business trying to grow. At the time, we were a small
Because-
business trying to grow.
There were 3 people that were working at SPI when it shut down. So instead of taking, I shouldn't really talk about their backstory, but instead of taking,
They didn't take redundancy money.
They
They took as much
they
tooling
were
as
able to take tooling and set up.
Okay.
Right.
to cover their redundancy money, so they could set up a business.
Right.
But we
right.
jumped in and bought some bits they
So,
wanted.
so
Oh,
we,
I see. So,
we
yeah,
bought some
yeah.
stuff.
So you
They
were
bought
like,
some stuff.
You needed to
Yeah.
kind
Yeah.
of work
Yeah.
together.
Dave Dean is a tool maker, and Des is just a salesman extraordinaire. I mean,
Okay.
he's so good. I mean, he loves the sale. He loves the deal.
Yeah.
He loves getting the stuff sold. He's brilliant guy.
Constantly on his stuff, looking to see who's contacted him, who he needs to talk to.
You can't go on holiday because you get emails. Aren't you on holiday, Des? Yeah, but I've seen this. You need to buy it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So between us, we've had this really good relationship, and they've helped us develop the bulkhead tooling. Well, they've developed the bulkhead tooling. We're manufacturing it, and then they sell it, and we sell it.
They make a kit of parts. We put them together.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
We've had
which is same
rounds. Yeah.
same theory as the chassis.
We still make a lot of Land Rover parts here. The chassis parts.
But it's
We
just
used to make a lot more.
Right.
the big items, the mass-produced items like the A-frames for all our Defender stuff. They put them together down there. They have a cabinet welder. They all go in, the cabinet welded up. We bring them back here, put the final dressings on them, and send them out. Attach them to chassis. All the spring seats, jack mounts, rod points. We have new tools for rod points this last 4 or 5 years.
You see a chassis with
So-
2mm jack mounts on it. Why is it 2mm? It should be 4mm.
Yeah,
They are out there.
Yeah.
they're hard to make in.
Yeah, they're hard to
They're hard to
make
make in
properly in
4mm. They're a lot easier to make in 2mm, but they're not strong enough. Let's be honest.
Right.
And
You're
how many
listing
people
your
actually
2.5
use the
ton
jack
vehicle up on some 2mm jack mounts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good luck to you.
Interesting, isn't it?
So,
Yeah.
yeah, so we work with DDS a lot, and then I like to form relationships in the business. So, we've worked with Gigglepin and Jim Marsden down at Gigglepin
At one point, extensively.
extensively. I mean, we built the chassis for Bad Penny. That was a good bit of fun because Jim says, "Can you put it on a diet?" I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "I want to make it 60 kilos lighter." And we're like,
Which is quite because the chassis tends to weigh what?
about 140-ish
For sure,
kilos.
Yeah. So it's quite a
Yeah.
significant weight saving, isn't it?
Yeah,
60
so
kilos.
Jim in his wisdom, and I think he's quite, when it comes to racing cars, he's certainly
He knows his stuff.
He does.
he
yeah,
knows
bless
his,
him,
he
yeah,
knows
he
his
does.
bits, doesn't he? But then he came to us and said, "Oh, I want to build a chassis in 2 mil, but it's got to be for the race car." And you'd seen our race car chassis.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So, but he says, "I want to strip all the weight out of it." And we said, "Right, how are we going to do this?" So we turned it into a colander. We just literally cut, I think there was 300 extra holes, 2-inch holes we put in it,
Dimple dyed.
and dimple
Right.
dyed them. So the top and bottom of the rails just dimple dyed.
How the A-frame cross.
Which adds extra strength anyway, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
if it wasn't dimpled, I suppose.
But
that
it
yeah.
effectively reduced the weight of each piece of metal we put on by a third.
And the metal thinks it's 4mm thick instead of, in Jim's case, 2mm.
And if he hasn't wrecked the chassis, then it's never going to be wrecked, is it?
Well, if Jim
You
can't
know.
break it, then it isn't going to break.
No.
And Bad Penny, he still has now, and I don't know how old it is. He must be 10, 12 years old.
Cracking on, this
It's-
thing, isn't it?
For
It's-
context, if you're not familiar with what Jim Gigglepin does, he races extreme off-road events all around the world, and Bad Penny's one of his race vehicles.
Well,
isn't it?
Bad Penny's his chassis car, and then he has the car he calls Mistress,
That's
which is a
Mistress,
full
yeah, full
tubular, flappy suspension thing.
Right.
Yeah.
But they're both running silly 7-litre V8
What, LS or whatever.
LS motors
Yeah.
and automatic gearboxes and 40-inch tyres and
Yeah.
all this. And Bad Penny's kind of the. Well, he took it to. I think he took Bad Penny over to King of the Hammers. And
Yeah.
he said it was like taking a pea shooter to a cannon fight. It was like, the cars out there are mental, but he did a lap and he got round and he did the course in it. And
Yeah.
so, but I mean, he's tried to destroy it numerous times, and he sold it once, bought it back, so
yeah,
it can't be separated.
I think that's why it's called Bad Penny, because it came back.
Kids
It
coming
came
back
back,
like
yeah.
a bad penny. So,
That's what I assume.
but I mean, that car's amazing. We took 60 kilos of weight out of the chassis, and Jim did a few extra things and added weight back onto
It wasn't the first one we'd done for him.
No, we'd done one before that, and then we did his
And then we
SV
went
as well.
A bit more extreme.
And then,
Right, okay.
you know, and then not Dan Evans, Dan Dew from Demand Engineering, who you just spoke to recently, yeah.
2 weeks ago, isn't he?
You know, his 130 project, and he's fitted a fair few of our chassis down there, and his 130, along with the Trevor Cuthbert stuff that we're chucking stuff into Ireland, and
So regular readers of LRM will know Trevor because he's been with LRM since the beginning, 1998, building numerous Land Rovers.
Contributing to the tech section,
Yeah,
doing a fine job.
and Trevor was blagging chassis from me back in as far back as 2004.
Just so make sure Trevor's listening to this. Yeah. So back in the early days, I've been with
Forming
LRM.
business partnerships.
Yeah, that's what we like to call
It
it.
was a mutual collaboration. Yeah.
We don't say hello to him anymore. We just say, "What do you want?"
Because obviously he's your Irish, so he sells them in Ireland.
He's the guy who basically transports our product over to Ireland and rounds customers up out there and stuff like that. He's
It's not so much that he buys them off us. He'll come over, he might buy 1 or 2, but then he'll go back with
he'll
other
take
customers
6 or 8 back
Of course,
with him.
mate. So he's
to pay for the ferry, because it's obviously expensive.
it would be,
Yeah.
It would be a lot of money.
So
And it's
he's
time-consuming.
transported
So he
stuff
helps
over
people
there.
out,
Yeah, yeah.
Because what he does is he comes here, drops the trailer off here, goes down, gets drunk with Dan all weekend down at Demand
is that what he
Engineering,
does?
rocks
Right.
back up here on Monday morning with a hangover and drives back up to
These
the
are
boat.
top secrets. Yeah.
These are unfounded allegations.
Yeah, this is all alleged, completely alleged. I'm sure that doesn't happen at all.
But Trevor's been a great fan of ours from the early days. He did plenty of articles in the early days and fitted chassis and has done all sorts on it. And then he was one of the first guys to do a bulkhead fit as well when we were prototyping the Defender
That's
bulkheads.
right, because he gave me the heads up. He goes, "Oh, you need to keep an eye on these guys because they're doing a secret project." I was like, "Well, what is it?" He goes, "Well, I can't tell you." I said, "Bulkhead." He went, "No, I can't tell you." I'm like, okay, that must be
I
bulkhead.
think he had bulkhead number 4
Okay,
and fitted bulkhead number 4.
because he's doing it.
So that's how early we were in our production process that we knew we were right on those.
all day, every day. Trevor fits chassis to Land Rovers, doesn't he? So he'll know if it fits or not, won't he?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, he'll give you.
It's, if you've got a product that's right, it's the time saving that comes along with it.
Yeah.
We know garages that have a couple of prices depending on whose chassis rolls up at the door.
Actually, I had the guy talk to me a show about this, and
Yeah.
he said, "I've got a friend. He said, I've got a friend who he fits chassis, and he says he's got a price for yours, then he's got a price for that one, and a price for that one, and a price for that one, depending on whose it is, how much he loads the price up.
Ours
how
is
much
the
it's gonna
cheapest
cost."
because you can get it on and off the ramp in 3 days.
Okay, interesting.
Right,
Yeah,
because
no,
don't
no,
have to
that's
do
how-
anything for it.
So
You know. So
Interesting.
we're trying. We're trying.
Yeah. I suppose it's like evolution, not revolution, isn't it? Because it's taken you like 40 years as Richard Chassis to be.
Yeah.
where
But
you are
the
today,
whole
but-
aim of the business is to try and build a chassis as close to the original Land Rover design. You know, because there's nothing wrong with it.
and
People say, "Oh, they go rusty" and all this lot. The problem is they're looking at it and they're not going, "Oh, it's a 40-year-old vehicle. I'd expect it to have a bit of rust." They just go, "Well, the
You don't
chassis is
see many-
rotten."
you
The
don't see many-
40-year-old blooming. I
you
don't
see
want to
many
disparage
40-year-olds
anybody, but
Fiestas, do you?
there's not many 40-year-old Escorts or
No.
Fiestas out there, is there?
No, not really. No, they're built to a price. They're built to be
That's
scrapped
it.
in what,
And
15
That's it.
years.
The design life of a Land Rover is
Yeah.
probably.
We expect a lot from Land Rover, don't we? Really,
Yeah.
if you think about the harsh environments.
Well,
some
Land Rover
work.
give you a 3-year warranty. After that, they're not really bothered about it.
No,
They want you buying
no.
a new one, sir.
We-
Would sir like to come and test our new Defender?
Yeah, we've had people come in to have a chassis swap with Paul over the road there, and they've been logging with it, in the woods. In the woods, they bring it in, and we go, you can put your fist through it, but it's still been working.
Yeah.
It's still been towing
Still
a
a
3-ton trailer.
Yeah, it's scary, really, isn't it?
And,
Yeah.
and there's just bits hanging off it,
What's
and
that?
it's
Irish-
still working.
We had a lad from Ireland come over and he says, "I want you to build me a chassis." And I said, "Yeah, no problem. What do you want?" He says, "I want a heavy duty rear cross member on it." I said, "Oh, right. What do you want that for?" He says, "I tow I'll tow a heavy trailer. I said, yeah, but how heavy is heavy? And he went, well, it's actually a water bowser and it weighs 12 tonnes. And he's been dragging it out of a boggy field in Ireland behind his Defender.
Yeah.
Right? And he says the rear cross member's slightly bending outwards, so he wants
So
a
this is a
heavy-duty rear cross
A
member on
rusty
it.
old rear cross member, standard.
Sounds like an easy
And
tractor.
And he's still towing things out with it.
12
People
ton
get
Bowser.
worried about having a 6mm rear cross member on.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
Why?
There's nothing wrong with the design of a Land Rover chassis, it's just terminal tin worm, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
And he can't be
It's
that.
just what you get in the UK and Ireland, obviously. It's just the nature of the country, isn't it? The weather, the climate, the salt. But they don't do badly, do they?
No, but the moral of the story is, you've got a chassis that's done 40 years. It doesn't need to be, 8mm plate or 6mm plate.
You don't need to lug around a 4mm thick chassis.
There's a lot of
which
extra
some people
weight.
ask for.
It'd be like carrying you lads around.
Why?
Yeah.
Glad shooter.
Especially after 4 Cape Friday.
I noticed he spent longer looking at you than me.
Yeah, well,
Yeah. I'd probably do
Right,
that.
well,
I've got youth on my side.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
No.
what?
You might have it on your side for now.
Yeah.
You-
What? How have you seen the trend in people obviously buy your chassis predominantly to keep Land Rovers going and also to restore them if they're doing a full rebuild? How's the trend changing? Has it been series and the Defender is still strong and Discovery's coming in, or what sort of? Tell us about that.
I would say to you, up until about 2 years ago, surprisingly, it was still a roughly 50-50 Defender to series.
Right.
Okay.
We were making nearly as many series chassis as Defender up till about 2 years ago. And it's kind of slipped to 70-30 now. But I think the market for Land Rovers has completely changed. It's not a working vehicle anymore. It's a Chelsea tractor. It's full of Bentley stitched leather,
Yeah.
and they're getting sold over in the States for $250,000.
That's
Um,
not everything. But there's less people at the bottom of the
There's
market.
less
wanna-
people.
Yeah. What we call the sort of the grassroots
Yeah.
Yeah, the gra-
greenlaning and off-road
Yeah.
market.
I
It's
think
kind
those
of
guys
changed.
have now gone into D2s because they're still at the moment affordable, right? But
Watch this
Defenders,
space.
they're looking at
Yeah.
them, and even broken, beat-up Defenders are fetching strong money for what they are, really. But I think we're doing so many D2 chassis at the minute. We're building 2 a week, D2 chassis.
That's really encouraging
That is
to hear
encouraging,
that
yeah.
people are putting.
But
the
we
time
thought
in.
they were going to be a flash in the pan as well. We thought, well, we'll have
We
a
didn't
couple of
even
years of
advertise.
those.
Yeah,
Right.
because I remember when you first talked about D2 chassis, but then it was a case of like, you'd only really want to sell them to a professional garage to fit them because it's a bit, they're less forgiving, aren't they? The bodies on.
Yeah,
There's a little bit more to it, but
Yeah.
There's a bit more work in fitting them, but I mean, generally you're leaving the whole body in one lump,
Mm.
Kind of
taking it,
easier, isn't it?
gutting half of the interior out of it, and it's almost a monocoque body
there's a few,
sat on top of a ladder frame chassis, whereas a Defender's very much a ladder frame chassis and some
There's a few ways to change
flexible
the chassis, isn't
aluminum.
there? There's the way where you just pick it up, wheel out the rolling chassis, swap it, and bang it underneath.
Drop it back down again and bolt
Or-
it back up, or you take it apart panel by panel.
Restore every single bit on it as you go, and one takes as little as a weekend if you really know what you're doing, and the other one takes you 4 years.
Yeah, exactly.
4+ years in Steve's case.
Yeah.
And that's on the Defender, not a Discovery. Imagine if I had a Discovery 2.
Yeah, you're flying along in 4
Yeah,
years.
yeah.
I've had a project on the go out there for 9 years. I mean, just
The thing is, when you, like for us, excuse number one here, it's when you're working in amongst Land Rovers and you're doing all the shows and the magazine stuff, the last thing you want to do really is kind of work on your own stuff.
yeah, that's what ARAC Parts are building ours now.
Yeah,
Because my
'cause-
project that's gone on for years and years, it's on its 3rd chassis now.
Okay.
Because we got, and I'm
Design.
going to change that. I'm going to do
Is it-
something different. I'll build another
Obviously it's
chassis
not
fit and I'll
It's not
stick,
me standard, is it?
stick something else under it. Because the project is, it's a full 100-inch Defender chassis with body to suit, extended king cab, single panel side on it. Ricky's done an amazing job on that. It looks fantastic. But the chassis is Discovery 2 running gear, TD5 auto engine and box, right? Discovery 2 axles, the whole works, right? And
Old coils.
I want to make a Defender that drives like a Discovery 2.
It almost sounds like Land Rover should have built that.
Could have been, couldn't it? The
Yeah.
next iteration on after they well, after TD5 really would have been the ideal time for them. before they
Imagine
just
it's
shoot
got a
them.
turning circle and everything.
Oh yeah, amazing. Yeah, very different. Yeah.
There's a guy at a show walked up to us and said, we got this running gear at a show a couple of years back, and he said, can you do one with Discovery stuff on? He's leaning on it.
Just like that
And
one.
He says, what you got in mind? Something like that. We'll have that.
Don't mind, but it had dirty great big 20-inch alloys in straight off a Discovery 4 that were underneath it, and it looked absolutely amazing.
He was so excited.
Yeah, amazing. But the only problem now with Discovery 2s is bodies are rotting, aren't they now? Whereas it was always Discovery 1.
I think you'll find they were rotting then as well.
Yeah, they were. But it's come. We get quite a few calls and emails, people looking for panels for Discovery 2s now.
Back in the early days, though, it was Discovery 1s. Right? The bodies used to rot for fun, but the chassis were absolutely lovely on them. So we never bothered making a Discovery 1 chassis until recently. But it was Discovery 2s, the chassis used to rot for fun. Right, they just used to rot around the plastic fuel tank in the back. You'd end up with 4 corners and a fuel tank floating in midair, and a caravan hooked on the back of it. And then, geez, that's not going well.
Yeah,
that's it. So we started making D2 chassis because ostensibly they are a lovely car.
Yeah,
they're a brilliant car.
Great. Yeah.
V8 one on gas. Oh man, that's going to be the best
Stuff
way, isn't
dreams
it?
are made of.
Stuff dreams are made of it all.
That's almost as good as an L322.
Oh no, give up.
To me, in my defence, right? So I was at the Practical Classics show at the NEC on Friday, and there was one in the sale at the Iconic Auctioneers sale.
Yes.
And I filmed it for you, especially for you.
You did like a special video.
A special video for Martin.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of car. A guide of 5,000 or 6,000 for the V8 one, wasn't it?
We haven't looked.
We
up
need
what
to
it
look
went
at what it went for.
What we do know what price the King Charles 90 made.
Had a guide of 42 to 50,000, and a lot of people on our socials said that will never make that, but it did. It exceeded it. I was going to say have a guess, but you've just given it away.
Ruined
now.
the surprise
You've-
now.
£60,000 plus 12% buyer's premium plus the VAT. So it's in total that is 15% on top of 60 grand.
But that's almost regular money for a Defender these days. For a
Not
nice
for
tiny
that one
Defender.
though. Not for that one.
Was it an old working truck? Was it?
It was,
I'm
but
not
it's a hardtop
familiar with it.
90. It wasn't
tiny.
special. Well, especially the fact that who owned it.
Yeah. But I think, well, as we've said before, I think Defenders have reached their peak and they're settling a bit now, price-wise. But people who've got them are still well and truly invested in making them last as long as possible, which is great news.
That's going to go on forever, though. I think Defender's still. It's that iconic. I know it's a word that's used a lot, but it's that iconic British vehicle, isn't it? And
You see, a couple of months back, there was a thing flashed up on the TikTok, and there was annoying
Stephen has seen
TikTok voices, and it said, and basically it was a Land Rover, a 110, all done up with a trailer to suit.
Ah, yes.
Went through Barrett Jackson in America for $400,000.
That was actually a Santana 109
Was it?
with a military trailer, and it was all been tarted up to look like Jurassic Park themed, hadn't it?
Like, so I haven't seen
Yeah,
it.
if you've never seen
when you say
Jurassic
military,
Park.
do you mean as in Sankey type trailer?
I believe it was, wasn't it?
I'm not sure. It was just a
400,000.
silly little TikTok or something.
It had, it was a Santana long wheelbase with like a frame on it, and it was all covered in lights.
$400,000.
It was like Tonka toy spec basically, and $400,000. Ridiculous, but someone was there at the right, the right person
Well,
was there.
if
and-
Worth what
that's-
someone's prepared to pay.
If that's the new dynamic of Land Rover ownership, then it just means that companies like this and a myriad of other companies will survive because there is that enthusiasm for the mark.
yeah,
And it needs to be that. I think if you work I don't think you'd even have to work that hard, but you could put a brand new Land Rover together now, just from the aftermarket parts that are available.
Easily, yeah.
I think the only thing you might struggle with is maybe axles.
If
But you probably get somebody who'll
Yeah,
do
but if you
Spider
go-
Tracks will do a set that'll suit
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
I'm
If you
sure.
go to somebody like Hobson's, they've got piles of them.
Yeah, what I'm saying is everything's
Kick
out
it
there to
around.
put brand
Yeah,
new ones together.
Brand new old
you know.
stock.
Yeah.
they have some really interesting stuff for sale actually.
Yeah.
Hobson Industries, like new 300 TDIs, new R380 gearboxes, and all sorts of stuff. And it's like, you could build
Was
something.
that 2.8 TGV motor one? They created TGV
Yeah, really
2.8.
interesting, yeah.
It's a nice
World
motor.
thing, yeah.
Well, you built one then at the LRO 90, didn't you? The
Yeah.
2.8.
That was a motor and diesel,
Version
using
of.
the MWM parts and brand new cylinder head and hybrid turbos. Great thing. Unfortunately, we didn't have the foresight to change the auto box for an R380, so all that lovely low down torque was lost through the torque converter. But it's a great engine.
What about the 8-speed BMW conversions they're doing now?
Getting popular, aren't they?
Yeah,
aren't
yeah.
they?
The M57.
M57s,
Yeah.
yeah, we do a lot of chassis with that, ready converted,
Yeah.
ready to bolt up to, yeah.
I can see why. It's a great a decent M57 with an 8-speed box is all the engine you'll ever need in a Defender.
And now we're getting asked more and more for electric versions of.
We've had a
said
few
Defender.
electric people come round and say, we want to start making these. As well, you come up with a recipe.
Tell us what you want, and we'll put the
We'll
freight
tell you how
together.
we
Yeah,
can
yeah.
do it, and we'll
Yeah.
build them for
I suppose it has to be fairly viable, doesn't it? It's like you can't just make them.
Well, it's turned it into a proper Chelsea tractor then.
Yeah,
hasn't
it
You can
is.
actually just ULEZ compliant, bomb around London picking the kids up from private school or whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
But we've tried to do this.
$50,000 for the.
Tried to do this a few times for people where they want specifics, like a Tomcat or somebody. They want theirs to do a specific thing. We say, well, we can have an off-the-shelf chassis for you that suits what you need. So if you want to go that route, and you want something regular and often that's as to a pattern, we'll do that.
A lot of the old chassis now are just sort of getting to the age where they're beyond repair and really they need full replacement.
So a company like that changes this every time they change it to that. They change so that fits. We can do that from the word go. So that's how we do it.
Do you ever get odd requests for older school type stuff, like a series chassis with coil spring mounts and things like
Yeah,
that?
we go. I mean, we get asked for them. We do try and talk people out of it. I mean, the latest one we've got a guy with an 80 who wants to coil it, and he's just like, "Are you mental?"
Yeah.
I mean, there was a thing, isn't there? There was a thing
trial.
in the early 80s, wasn't it, where you took a knackered two-door V8 Range Rover and you took an 80-inch Land Rover, and
Smushed them
you
together.
took what is ostensibly £200,000 worth of car in today's
Yeah.
sort of
Back
market.
then, they were just
Yeah.
throwaway items.
So
weren't
you
they?
take the
together.
£120,000 Land Rover restored Range Rover two-door classic and the £80,000
Right,
Land
yes.
Rover restored Series 180, and you mashed them together and you turned them into a £1,000 trailer.
Yeah.
Nice job.
So really fast. You got two rotten Range Rovers, cut them in half, and then welded the fronts together.
Interestingly, we've got a chassis that's come for resto out there. Is it an 80?
Yeah, we've just started doing chassis restorations, and this guy's.
You say that. I saw the bits. It's literally in bits, isn't
Now
it?
we've
Oh,
got
no.
two in at the minute.
Oh,
I
okay.
haven't showed you the other one
Oh, okay.
because it's
Right.
hilarious, right? This thing's it's an 80 and it's been set up on coils and what have you, and the guys and it's been used as a trailer, right? And it had a mini engine in the middle of it.
Oh, I've seen this on eBay.
Mini automatic.
I think I saw this when it was on eBay.
So it's had a mini automatic. So the guy's bought the chassis back to us because he wants to put it back to an 80, and he wants us to quote on repairing this chassis. Well, it's got so many bits welded to it. I reckon we've got 20 hours with an angle grinder just getting all the stuff off it.
Yeah.
But it's set up for cold sprung with a mini engine mounted in the middle of
Because
it.
when you restore one, the idea is you keep as much.
But the
that's still viable,
originality.
you keep it.
Yeah. You got to keep the
Um,
originality there.
And,
don't
and,
you?
and to
Yeah, of
keep
course.
bits that are viable, you think, oh, I'm still using the same bit. But it's going to cost you a lot to save that bit. That's the
Yeah,
important
that's
thing.
it. So it's labour that costs
Yeah,
the money.
yeah.
Because the big issue now with a lot of the 80s and things like that, they are getting really, really thin. They've had 70 years of corrosion, just gentle surface corrosion on them.
Yeah.
They only started
Disappearing
out
from the
at 2
inside
mil
out.
thick.
Mm.
So now they're probably down to 1.6, and then a few dimply holes in, and probably nearly through. So you've got to start questioning the validity of
Which
the
is fine
restoration
if,
you're doing.
If all it's going to do is drive on and off the trailer on a showground,
yeah.
it's all right. But if you're going to go out and bash it around,
Yeah.
perhaps
How are you going? Is it a trailer tar?
There's so many fewer and fewer Landers getting bashed around now like that.
You
Like
can't
80s.
afford to bash them
No,
around
you
at that
can't.
point,
They're
can you?
museum
No.
pieces and
Yeah.
I say bring back bashing around. It's much more fun.
yeah, decool Land Rovers.
Yeah.
Take it back to how it was.
Back in old days.
It's back in our day.
It's not bashing it around anymore. It's patina.
Oh yeah, sorry, yeah.
You need some patina.
Patina.
There's enough patina on that other Series 1 chassis we looked at earlier. Crikey, it's like a box of beats, isn't it?
It came on a Euro pallet, basically.
Yeah.
It's folded up onto a Euro pallet.
Yeah, we do have a chassis that arrived in 3 separate pieces that needs restoring, which is it's going to be really interesting. The rear cross member came in a carrier bag. It'd been swept into a carrier bag, and
so can you put this back
just
together?
a few bits.
But it's original, so it doesn't matter.
There's certain bits on it we'll
And
save. Like we'll keep
cl-
some of the suspension.
The
and
cliche of Trigger's broom, it'll still be original.
Yeah,
it's still the
exactly.
original. It's still got the original engine mount with the chassis number on it. So.
Trigger's broom. That's a
Exactly.
phrase we're hearing a lot.
It
isn't
is, yeah. Most Land Rovers are.
They are. It's the ultimate rebuildable Meccano kit car, isn't it?
We're proud to partner with Adrian Flux, an insurance broker that specialises in covering all types of Land Rovers, including classic, ex-military, modified and Q-plated models. Adrian Flux offers a range of optional extras to make the policy your own and can provide cover for off-roading, green laning, agreed value and build-up cover. Plus, they even offer a discount of up to 15% for Owners Club members. Simply search Adrian Flux Land Rover Insurance for more information or call them directly on 0344 728 0417 for a quote.
So, I've learned a lot in the time I've never been here before, but I've picked up. You guys have said stuff that's really stuck in my mind. One of those things, Duncan, you said about why it's never a good idea to galvanise a used chassis, and I'd never thought of this before. But you really, a pearl of wisdom.
As far as I can work out, a lot of the chassis came with paint inside now, before I think Ford got all of them. So you take your chassis down for a shop blasting.
Clean it up.
You take all the paint off the outside, then you take it for a dip. At that point there's still paint on the inside, so it goes through the acid, which denatures the paint a little bit, then it goes through the actual 450 centigrade.
The heat of a galvanising.
Yeah,
Yeah.
denatures the painting even more, but doesn't actually galvan on it. Yeah,
It's not
doesn't
hot enough
stick
to
it.
burn the paint off
So
completely.
it's got 2 jobs at that point: to
Yeah.
burn the paint off, to then adhere
and
to
it
the
won't
metal.
do it. Paint
do
won't
it.
burn off till getting way up to nearly
Yeah. So-
1,000 degrees.
Oh, I
And,
see.
you know,
Yeah.
The zinc's only at 455.
If you use a
Yeah.
blowtorch on paint, it doesn't just disappear.
No,
you have to
doesn't-
scrape
yeah,
it as well.
Scrape it, yeah.
So you've got a layer of something that the galv doesn't really want to stick to. Then you take it out on the roads, bit of damp, boom, it's gone.
So now the paint's gone and there's no gal.
So any protection
Yeah.
you had inside has now disappeared. So it's all nice and zinky on the outside.
Well,
and
a lot of galvanised chassis from, unless they're pickled properly, and not just a quick dip like they get at the galv shop, unless they're pickled properly, the paint's still there.
Right. And
Sorry,
But
what's,
you've seen
what's
them when-
left of the paint is still
yeah.
Yeah.
So you've actually seen them when they strip these body tubs down of cars, haven't you? When they're dipping Mark II Escort shells and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
Mark II Escorts. I'm not even going to go there. But
sounds like a story there.
Yeah.
well, no, I mean, how many times did you used to go on get the old free press out on a Friday? Well, Escort, £30.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just go out and buy it, drive it for 2 months with an MOT on it and whatever, and then drive it into the scrapyard and get your £30 back off
It's
the
kind of like cheap
scrapyard.
motoring, yeah. Back in those days, yeah.
How much would you be worth if you kept all of those Mark 1 and Mark 2 Escorts you
Hindsight
had?
is a wonderful
Oh,
thing.
it's a joy, isn't it? Anyway, we divulged.
Yeah, so-
Diverged.
It's not impossible to get a good galv on a second-hand chassis, but
They just rot from
there's
the
another
inside
thing that
out.
happens is
Yeah.
when your steel delaminates, because it gets
It
fatter.
splinters, doesn't it?
Yeah,
It's like
it
bits, it's like
actually-
slate, isn't it?
yeah.
It's kind of like layers and layers.
If you weigh an old chassis before it's even galvanised, they're a lot heavier than ours that are made of thicker stuff. You can barely turn the things over. Well, you
Okay.
can, but-
Yeah, yeah.
So this then soaks up loads of galv on the inside because there's places for it to get into and stick to.
And it galvanises all the shot from the blasting as well.
And the rust that's there, they end up being really heavy. So there's a few reasons why I don't recommend galvanising an old chassis. you're better off just cleaning it up and then wax oiling the inside.
The favourite one though is after a couple of years, all the internal structure will have rusted out inside your freshly galvanised chassis. So any integrity it once had is fast disappearing inside out. It's just rotting from the inside.
We would say this, wouldn't we? Don't galvanise your own chassis.
No, by all means, repair them and restore them, but don't galvanise them. It'll just kill
You're
them.
probably going to kill it quicker.
Right.
Kill it
in the long
quicker.
run.
Sorry.
So I was going to say, it's interesting. Back to the bulkhead thing then. So when I put my sort of like thoughts out on for social media or whatever, for every person that said go galvanised, somebody else said go e-coated. So you offer bulkheads, you offer 2 coatings.
We offer both.
E-coated.
The reason we've done it is the galvanised bulkhead looks a bit wavy and a bit it kind of the galvanising process in itself denatures the steel a bit, and it just turns and wavy.
As in it just makes it ripple a little.
It just makes it ripple.
So,
I mean,
your body,
it doesn't
your body shop
deform it.
has more work to do.
Yeah,
You were saying in the construction of a bulkhead earlier, even at the factory, they would use.
Oh,
body
there's filler on a genuine bulkhead as it comes out of the factory. Before, there's welds on the bulkhead that they flash over, and then they'll paint over them, and just to make them look nice. And it's usually the bit behind where the wing bolt's on. There's a bit of filler in there. And that's the only spot. Ours are exactly the same. So it's one of those areas. If you overgrind it, you will take away any integrity there. And there's about 4 panels that join at that point.
It's come together at that point.
Four panels come together at that point, and if you remove all the weld, then there's no strength holding it together, and it'll just break apart. The whole structure
You
will
just take the
fail.
high bit off, and then it gets flashed over.
So there
the way
is
it is.
filler on bulkheads to start with, but it depends what you want to do with your truck. If you are rebuilding your truck and you just want a serviceable Land Rover that's going to last forever and go trugging round fields and green laning, then get a galvanised bulkhead, spend a bit extra having it painted to make it at least look sensible and nice. And but how long do you need that bulkhead to last? Realistically, you're working on a vehicle where the bulkhead's already lasted 40 years.
Like mine, exactly. 40 years this year.
Bulkhead's already 40 years old.
Might have a few foot welds in it, but
it's had triggers broom.
Hopefully my lad will still be making bulkheads in another 40 years, so if your kids want to come along and put a new bulkhead on it in 40 years, I'm sure my lad would love to see them.
Do you know what? My kids have got zero interest in Land Rovers. Zero. I think, just like I have got zero interest in antiques, because my dad was into antiques, and it was forced upon me. I think I forced Land Rovers upon them. They're not interested.
Well, my lad has not had a choice.
This is where you're working.
He left school at 16 and came to work here as an apprentice here at 16 years old.
But he looks like he's enjoying himself though.
Oh, he loves it.
Restoring a chassis is somewhat different to say making one, isn't it?
Yeah, he absolutely loves it, and he's got 4 years to prove himself. So he's going to be running it 'cause I'm off. 4 years, I want to be gone.
That boat building that you started out.
Oh no, it's not like that.
You going out?
No, I'm just going to build a 130 Overlander and disappear for a couple of years.
Okay, interesting.
Do something mental like that.
He sails twice a week anyway, don't you?
I sail every week anyway.
Oh, you are into the boats.
Proper dinghy sailing,
racing. I used to do it as along with him when we were kids, but I say kids, 20s. But I stopped and he stops, and then he started, and I didn't.
Okay.
Yeah. The older I get, the better I was.
Yeah. Same for everyone, isn't it? Really. Yeah. So I noticed when we rocked up, you were a bit of a Triumph man. Last week we spoke about Triumph Stags.
Steve's got a bit of a thing for a stag.
All of a sudden, right? I'm just like.
One of the nicest sounding standard V8s.
It is, isn't it? Yeah.
Al used to have a stag, didn't he?
Yeah, I think you've seen
I saw it
you've seen when he
ago.
came here last time, didn't you?
It was myself and Ed Evans, our technical editor, came here, and he's a Triumph man. In fact, I think he used to be a tech editor in Triumph World magazine back in the day.
I've no idea.
And he sat in it, and I sat in it. I was like, oh, this is nice.
So
They're a nice place to be.
They are nice. They're small, though, aren't they?
And the stuff about them being massively unreliable and all the rest of it, it's all been sorted. You can do it so that
put the right coolant in them and make sure you've got take the heads off every 2 years.
Make sure they're cleaned out on the heads and stuff. Once you've rebuilt one properly, they're absolutely
phenomenal
fine.
car. Lovely
nice
thing.
old thing, nice old bus. It's like effortless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to say, as someone who's never really been that enamoured with British sports cars, when we turned up and saw the GT6 outside, I did
My
think,
GT6 is very special because it's never ever been welded.
Which is like probably the only one in
unheard of.
existence.
Yeah, I think somebody put a tiny patch in it somewhere, and it's about 2 inches square.
But it's like that's
Right, but it's
in
been
terms of
properly
level,
done, and then it has been painted, but it's never been welded other than that one bit.
Yeah. You've had that for a few years, have you?
I've had that a fair few years now.
Yeah.
It's been to Le Mans and it's broke down at Spa. Locked
on the track.
Managed to weld the input shaft into the back of the engine.
Oh,
the gearbox input shaft into the back of the engine.
It did have a.
Wow.
It's got Toyota 5-speed in it. But,
It's got Toyota Supra 5-speed gearbox
Really?
in it. Yeah. And
Wow.
It was
triple
just
weathers.
Nice. 2.5 straight six.
no, it's a 2 litre that one.
2 litre.
2 litre with triple Webbers on it.
Right, okay.
It's not good. It's well overfueled.
Yeah. Yeah. But that,
sort of.
yeah. Nice thing though.
yeah, really nice,
So
I have to say.
Do you know the reason why you're thinking of they're coming on to the line? It's because you're getting that bit older.
Do you reckon that
You're
is?
turning into a man.
I'm certainly getting grey enough.
I've had a Spitfire I've had since I got it in '99. We put it on the road in 2004 because Al said to me one day, "Shall we go to see?" It was the second running of the Le Mans Classic. "Shall we go? Shall we get that Spitfire on? We'll go in it." So we spent the winter doing it, and
Yeah.
I've spent 20 something odd years arsing around with it really.
Yeah.
Just
Enjoying it.
Yeah, well, that's on Webbers. It's on a little 3.5 kilo flywheel, and it's got a 5-speed 4 box, and it's yes, you can get things that are way faster. But that's not the point.
One
It's
thing
the
that,
messing around with it that's the point.
yeah, that's what makes
And
it a hobby, isn't
The
it?
great thing about
I've-
Triumphs, you get to kill yourselves at a lot lower speeds.
Yeah.
You know, I've done laps around the full Le Mans circuit. I haven't done Spa. I've done quite a few tracks in this country.
Yeah,
just driving it.
Donington and
But there's no reason to sell that because it's cheap to very cheap.
Yeah. Very cheap. Yeah.
Cheap to insure, no tax. Yeah, it
And
just
that's
sits there until it wants it.
Yeah.
Fire it up and away we go. It's good fun.
I think with cars like that, though, of a certain age, obviously they tend to follow the owner's age, don't they? The car that you want it to have. So, but whereas like Land Rovers are kind of exempt from that, but they
Well,
appeal to
That's
so
I
many
mean,
people.
your proof in point is my lad. He's 26 years old, and I said to him, "What classic car would you
Time
like?"
for you
And
to get something interesting.
time for you to get an interesting car to come out and play with us. I want a Nissan 350Z,
Yes,
So
to
he's
me,
got a
that's more,
350Z.
it's like modern.
but
Yeah.
it's also got an 80. Work that one out.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say I do sit between the two, pretty much 10 years between the two actually.
Yeah.
Hero cars for me were stuff that you'd see on Gran Turismo 2 on the PlayStation, so R34 Skyline, Supras, RX-7s, all that
Yeah.
stuff.
Lewis is exactly the same.
That I'll never own now because now that America can get them, the
Well,
prices
they're in
have gone
vogue for your age
stratospheric.
group, aren't they?
Yeah.
That's what that age group
I mean,
buy.
Skylines were always hard to come across anyway, weren't they? You couldn't find them
For-
over that much.
Jack
Yeah.
Import Skyline. Yeah.
But for a good few years, they were what you call they were attainable. But
Yeah.
then, I mean,
There
it's
just weren't many of them.
Yeah, exactly. They're all over in Ireland getting the
Yeah.
backside
Getting thrashed.
kicked around Mondello. But yeah,
Okay.
no, it's just an interesting thing. But like you say though, Land Rovers have sort of avoided that, and it doesn't matter how
They're
old you
exempt,
are. Kids love Land Rovers. People who are getting into driving, they're seeing them as exciting and cool. And then obviously older guys and girls are well into them as well. So they've kind of dodged that whole bullet.
They've always been other.
Mm.
There's only one category they fit in.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So it's not like do I get an XR2 or do I get a 205? You either get a Land Rover or you don't.
Yeah.
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 So I was in the Land Rover camp back when I was 18, 19, and people were in Cavalier SRIs and Astra
Yeah.
GTEs. And
One of my first
Yeah.
cars, I used to run around in a V6 blooming Essex engined air portable that would
Really?
pass
Oh,
any,
nice.
I've had exactly the same airportable.
would pass anything except a petrol station.
Yeah.
The lightweight. Yeah.
Lightweight, mate. But
yeah, nothing like
I've never seen you ever
Biggest
pushed
misnomer
one.
there is is lightweight. Isn't it?
Yeah.
I noticed you called it an air portable rather than lightweight, which is
Half
unusual.
ton
Yeah.
air portable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it only weighed half a ton.
The
Yeah.
footwells used to get really hot, didn't they, in with the Essex engine conversion?
Yeah.
Because the the manifold was basically touched the footwell, didn't it, on the
Footwell,
driver's side?
Yeah.
Don't talk to me about hot footwells. Rover V8 between you.
Oh,
you and the
of course,
passenger.
yeah.
None of you have driven a GT6. I'm sorry.
No, I
No, I
haven't.
haven't.
No.
I've only just discovered how
GT6
gorgeous
has got
they
a
are.
6-cylinder heater element right in the middle of the gate and a cardboard tunnel to protect you from it. So
Sounds
me
right.
and the lad were
So
going
you're
to...
never cold then?
He never ever called. Me and the lad were going down. Well, we were following my mate Ian in his GT6, and we were going through Rouen on the way to Le Mans one year, and it was a comfortable 32 degrees outside. Every time we pulled up at traffic lights, the doors got flung
Really?
open just
So
to
that's
try and get
heat
some
up.
air in it.
Jump outside, pour water over.
So where 32 felt cool compared to
Oh,
what
it
you were...
was so hot in that car. It must have been, 50 degrees
God.
inside. It was. I mean, it got ridiculous. It got to a point where we were stopping and getting T-shirts and jeans and dunking them in buckets of water, and pouring water all over them and wetting them and then putting them back on, and in 20 minutes all your clothes were dry again. So you'd have to
Whoa.
stop and change into it
The
again.
joys of British motoring.
Oh,
You can tell they're built for the UK where you don't really need aircon, can't you?
Yeah.
jeez.
Yeah.
But the,
I know
the
there was room
964
to
is
fit
a lot
aircon
nicer.
on the GT6.
No,
There's
I
just no
suppose
room.
not. No, they're very compact little thing, aren't they?
When you see a car like that, though, you realise how small cars were back in the when they say
Well, it's
back in
more
the
like
day.
you realise how absolutely enormous they are now.
Yeah,
They've gone. They're just like huge, massive, great
Well,
wide things.
Even his 964 looks tiny compared to
My mate's
cars.
got a 992, and you park the 964 next to it, and it's almost like it's 50% bigger.
But the 992 Porsche.
Yeah.
That's the new
That's
one.
the latest one.
Oh, they're hideously
They're huge.
huge. They're like
Huge.
SUV size. It's crazy.
Even like Volvo estates, like normal cars are enormous now compared to like.
I remember when I was young.
We're sounding like Mike told Duffers,
But-
by the way.
yeah.
Just saying, you know.
I remember
Yeah.
you see
Back in my day.
you see Granada and you think,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
a big car. That's a big. Have you seen a Granada?
They're tiny. They are absolutely
They're
tiny.
tiny
Mark,
now,
Mark
yeah.
1, Mark 2. Yeah.
I see one occasionally around here, and I think they used to be massive when I was a kid, but not anymore.
Oh, we
My
used to
dad
think
had a-
Series Land Rovers were big, but
Yeah, they're not
they're
tiny.
not.
They're nice and narrow.
They're only a bit
They've
bigger
got
than
about
a Mini.
They've got about
aren't
the
they?
same
But they look
wheelbase
the size of a
as
Mini
your
now. and
GT6.
Yeah.
Well, it's like the old when the Freelander 2 came out. That was the same body dimensions as a Discovery 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same like.
And yet,
you just
visually, you think of 302 as being
being
a small
quite small.
car, but
yeah.
not.
No.
So
Anyway.
what's better for the world than a 3-ton SUV or a nice lightweight Series 2?
Exactly, I think.
Yeah.
When were you ever going to hear the sentence "a lightweight Land Rover"
Yeah, exactly.
and not laugh?
yeah.
But compared to modern stuff, they are, aren't they?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And thankfully, people are, like you say, putting the time and the money into keeping them going and giving them a good home and enjoying them for what they are, which is
Yeah.
the main thing. And long may it continue.
The only thing that will knock them off the road is legislation.
Yeah, and the way things are going at the moment, that might be sooner rather than later.
I can't see it.
Not
but
really, but they're trying hard.
There's
There's a witch hunt
but-
around on it.
But there is a hell of a lot of industry, for want of a better term, and commerce around old Land Rovers. Huge amount.
I don't know what the market is now for companies that work Land Rovers, and
There's
must be
the whole
thousands of
market
people
still worth
employed.
millions, isn't it? And millions to the country
Yeah.
in terms of.
God, how boring is that when we're talking
revenue.
about the state of the
These-
economy?
these-
And on that note, I think actually we'll wind this up. 'Cause we're over an hour and the recorder is shouting low battery at me, which is making me nervous. So, thank you ever so much for having us.
Thank you for coming.
We're going to whiz around with the camera now and get some footage for YouTube because that's the kind of guys we are.
And then finishing up with loading up the new bulkhead. Take it back
Excited.
to the workshop.
Yeah, the
So,
next big
yeah.
piece for the Land Rover.
I'm keen.
Right.
Keen to crack on.
You'll be keen until you're 2 days into swapping those bits of wire over.
Yeah, I
No,
know.
no, the last bit you take off a bulkhead is the first bit you fit on it.
Yeah, you're at the
When you
top,
rebuild
you're at the
it.
bottom
Yeah.
of a big mountain here.
I am,
Steve.
yeah. No, it's a we are.
It's taken 4 years to change your chassis, so this is going to be hilarious.
Yeah, I'll see you in 5 years, yeah.
Well, you'll see it on YouTube, on the LRM YouTube channel and in the magazine. And you'll probably hear about it on here as well. But yeah, for now, we'll catch you next week.
Thanks very much.
Thank
Bye
you,
for now.
guys.
Bye for now.
Cheers.